Hey, what's up YouTube? Skybadger here, and I'm back in our infantry series to talk about the Commando. So far in this series, I know we've been on a little bit of a break, but I've discussed militia and the regular infantry, their pros, their cons, what they're good for, and what they suck at. So today I want to talk about the Commando. While in some circumstances I do believe it is not worth building, in others I believe it excels and is worth building. So let's have a look at the Commando. If we go into the secret tab, we can see Commandos are researchable at day 12. So if we have a look at their stats, they are pretty good, especially against armor. So with that free attacking and defending, they are already better than most levels of infantry. And with attacking with 5.5 and defending with 5.5, they're also pretty good as well. Now what sets Commandos out from the other infantry is their proficiency in mountains, and actually this sets them out from just about any other unit in the game. This proficiency and this 100% strength bonus makes them an incredibly useful unit if you intend to be fighting in mountains. So how do they compare to the other infantry units in the game? They're especially good early on. If we have a look at level 12, by level 12, day 12 rather, you can have level 2 infantry, and we can already see that Commandos at this point are superior, with Commandos fighting with 5.5 and defending with 5.5, and free and free. At day 12, Commandos are far better than the infantry you can have at that point. If we have a look at the militia, you can have around the same time, way better as well. Not only that, the Commandos have 10 more hit points as well, making them far superior to the infantry at that point. Now, it's not until you get to the later levels that you start to see infantry kind of get up to that point. It's not until day 30 that regular infantry, for example, can defend with 3 points of damage. That is the same as the Commando. And its defense against infantry at this point, 6.8, is better than what the Commando can. But for that brief 18 days, Commandos are superior to infantry in most ways, and even then, if you still have a look, the Commando is still better in attacking than regular infantry. So while they are rare and can be hard to build, they are definitely superior for infantry for some time. Now later on in the game, especially when you get to this point here, they are still slightly better at attacking tanks than infantry are, and they still do have that 10-point advantage, but at this point regular infantry has the same attack value and even greater values at defense than the Commando. Now obviously if these stats were in mountains, the Commando would be superior, because with a 100% bonus, Commandos can defend mountains with 11 points of damage and with 6 points of damage against tanks. So clearly, even at level 6, infantry in mountains is nothing compared to a Commando unit. So what I believe makes Commandos that little bit less competitive to infantry is the fact that they can only be built in your capital. And this is what lets them down, is the lack of numbers you can have. So although I don't know the reason behind it, Commandos can only be built in a capital, and they also require a level 2 barracks, which is something the other two infantry types we have discussed so far do not require. So for this reason alone, it can, make it a little less worth it, because at this point, the running costs of building them and supplying them is a lot greater. A level 2 barracks uses a lot more food than a level 1 does. So if we have a look at the resources needed, you'll also notice that Commandos need rare material. This is another downfall, as rare can be used most of the time in other more useful places. It also requires metal, which can be a little scarce, especially if you're building a lot of tanks, but in some cases it can be worth it. Now you'll also notice its daily upkeep is actually incredibly low. If we compare this to militia and infantry, you'll notice that it's actually less than what they require to run, making it in the long term very cheap to uphold. But that initial cost with the rear and the middle sometimes doesn't make it necessarily worth it. It really comes down to your own preferences and how you develop and use your economy. Myself, for instance, I'd rather save my rockets, well, my rear, for building rockets and other rear, stuff like that. Industrial complexes are still incredibly important to keep building, and if I'm spending 500 rear on Commandos a day 12, that right there is 10% of a industrial complex, 500 rear. So I personally avoid using Commandos early game, but due to their proficiency in mountains, they can be good later on in the game. They also have a slight proficiency in cities, which can make them useful as well. So where do I think they stand in relation to militia and infantry? Well, infantry, I personally believe, due to the fact it's easy to produce, it's kind of the middle ground infantry. Infantry is ideal for me because it fits everything I need. It's reliable. It's not the cheapest. It's not the most expensive. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. It's not the greatest. It gets the job done, and it's reliable. So I believe Commando is kind of just below infantry in my eyes. Commandos are hard to build in sufficient numbers to make any good use of. And this is really where I think their downfall is, because unless you're pumping Commandos, they can be hard to build up a good sized force. But their proficiency in mountains does that make them a lot better than everything else, because if we have a look at other units in the game, you'll see that, this SPAA, for example, has minus 25%. Regular infantry, is good across everything. It doesn't lose anything. Like, I'm pretty sure all armor types have a minus 25%. So, while everything else gets a minus 25% in mountainous areas, Commandos get 100%, which, does put them a step above the rest and makes them very efficient in these areas. But in reality, when you look at the map in the game, most of it is hills, plains, and the occasional forest. Actually, I think hills and forests are the same thing. Let's check that out. I'm pretty sure. Just got that wrong. Yeah, hills and forests are the same thing. So most of the time, the terrains you'll encounter are plains and forests. Mountains, you'll come across them every now and then, but they are not there in huge numbers. So there's my view on the Commando. I hope you enjoyed this series while I explain the ups and downs of each of the units and sort of how they should be used. Commandos obviously should be used in mountainous areas, it's that simple. So thank you for watching, like, comment, and subscribe.